One's ready. Go!
Hey everybody, welcome back to the One's Ready podcast. This is your daily drop for 12 March, brought to you by Barbell Apparel. Go over to barbellapparel.com. No promo code over there, but check out their Havoc polo shirts, their stretchy fit jeans, their stretchy fit chinos, joggers. They've got workout shorts, they got graphic t-shirts for working out, their Havoc polos for dressing nice if you're one of those people that likes to dress nice, whatever. But these things are highly capable. Use them for tactical shooting, use them for hiking. I know it's crazy. I don't necessarily use jeans for hiking, but their chinos are actually really, really good because they have so much give. And I saw there was a dude that ran a marathon in jeans. Like, I don't think I'm going to do that, but if I were, I would be wearing Barbell Apparel because they stretch that well and fit that nice. So if you're a Quadzilla and you got a thick old bum, then yeah, that's what you want to use. Barbellapparel.com. Let them know we sent you at their checkout survey. You can hit One's Ready to let them know we sent you, and if not, if we're not happen to be on that list, then hit other, type us in. That way they know we sent you. All right, on to the news. We'll start with the joint news first, and if you're new here, this is the news that gets delivered to the commanders and chiefs on a daily basis. Some of it is tailor-made and curated by Public Affairs, but I'm basically going to change the format a little bit. I'm not going to read it to you. I'm just going to kind of hit a 2-sentence, 3-sentence blurb and then give you an opinion on it. So, joint news, U.S. resumes Ukraine aid. Defense news released on the 11th of March, 2025. The U.S. resumes military and intel aid to Ukraine after a week-long pause, easing fears of Russian gains. A 30-day ceasefire hinges on Russia's approval, with envoy Steve Witkoff meeting Putin. The move follows talks urging Europe to bolster Ukraine's defense. I think I talked about it yesterday or the day before. This probably put their operations to a halt, or pretty close to a halt, because they need our intel, they need our imagery, and with us cutting that off, that decreased their targeting ability and their ability to strike the correct targets. They need the grid coordinates, they need the gnat's ass grid coordinates and elevation to be able to strike these targets, and they also want to strike the targets when their high value target is in that building. So, no need to waste munitions that they're already hurting on. So that's why that was so critical to them, and why it was such a big deal that we stopped allowing that to happen, or stopped giving them intel and giving them imagery. So, all right, number 2, Pentagon trains on software buying. Defense Scoop, 11 March 2025. Pentagon leaders will soon train acquisition staff on Secretary Pete Hegseth's directive to standardize software purchases. The software acquisition pathway prioritizes commercial solutions and other transaction authority. A 30-day plan aims to deliver secure, scalable software for readiness. This makes sense to me, because there are many times that I know the active duty dudes that are out there are going to relate to this, but you say the Air Force, or even inside the Air Force, we will use, like, special tactics will use a certain software for, I'll just call it, I'll use an example. Special tactics and Air Force Special Operations Command tracks training and currency and proficiency of JTAC skills, Joint Terminal Attack Controller skills, on one system. Air Combat Command has the same similar thing. It's similar, but it's not the same. And it's a different program. The two don't talk to each other or anything like that. And you're like, dude, we are all in the Air Force. We're all trying to do the same exact thing. Now, part of that is that there are different requirements that the Air Combat Command JTACs have versus the AFSOC, or the Air Force Special Operations Command JTACs have. But we have programmers that are pretty smart that could just do one program that actually talks to each other. And if you're an AFSOC JTAC, you could have those requirements met. If you're an ACC JTAC, you could have those requirements met. So that is a very simple and a simple example of what this has to do with, but think of it as a big scale and between the services. There are 100% systems that we use in the Air Force that we can't talk to the Navy or the Marines or the Army with, and vice versa. So this is a good thing. I just hope that it doesn't get messed up in the acquisitions. You start getting companies that say, hey, we can provide this and we can provide this, but hey, it's going to cost you $200 million. Well, we are only willing to spend $50 million, and then we end up getting a crappy system. So it's a risk for sure. Next one, LC-130 lands on ice, Air and Space Forces, released on 11 March. The Air Force's LC-130, a Skybird, lands on freshwater ice during a joint exercise with Canada in the Arctic. Well, we're still working with Canada, are we? The New York Air National, that's just a joke, people, it's just a joke. The New York Air National Guard's mission enhances flexibility for rapid deployments in remote areas. It underscores a growing U.S. focus on Arctic deterrence. Dude, the Arctic is something that the U.S. has neglected in the past, and we have finally gotten our shit straight and actually paying attention to Arctic because hence, talks with Greenland and Denmark, who owns Greenland, and stuff like that. Like the Arctic is an area that is of high importance. Like I said, we've neglected it. I'm glad that we're starting to pay attention to it now, and hopefully it's just not too late. Allies boost AI experiments. Defense One released on 11 March. The U.S. Air Force exercise with Canada, Australia, and the U.K. test AI for missile defense. The Shock-In drill shows how Allied sensor data speeds up targeting. Lieutenant Colonel Wesley Schultz stresses unifying intel for success despite political tensions. Yeah, so the whole AI thing, right? And this was explained to me, like it made sense to me and the light went off, but I hadn't thought about it on my own. But there's a really smart intel patch that I was talking to, and we were talking about the implementation of AI into the military and on the classified. So to give you an example of it, we have so many ISR platforms that are out there flying around. And you got to think each one of these, MQ1s, MQ9s are up there for 15 to 20 hours just recording, right? And yeah, you have people flying it, but they aren't the analysts. We have people that analyze those kind of things. And when you start talking about like, hey, why wasn't this thing caught or captured, in the sensor? Well, it was, but we didn't see it because you still have people doing these things. So they talked about, okay, well, let's put AI, to watch this, because if we could cut that into a third, even if a half, to just have our analyst view 10 hours versus 20 hours, like we got a better chance of seeing things. So using the AI to kind of highlight and flag significant events that would be of concern. Well, talking to her, the problem with that is that when you have something like Grok or ChatGPT, I don't even know if it's worth mentioning Google's Gemini because that thing's garbage, but they have billions upon billions, if not trillions, of data points to go through, right? On the secure side, whether it's the top secret networks or the secret networks, we don't have billions and trillions of data points. We have thousands, probably tens of thousands. It's not enough to train that model of what to look for. Now, that is, will that change in the future? Maybe. Is there a way around it to have a database for AI to learn off of? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not that smart on it. But thinking about it, like when you start talking about the amount of data points that ChatGPT and Grok get, like that starts to make sense actually. So don't mind me. Just got to drink some of this Hoist at drinkhoist.com. Promo code one's ready. Man, still working on that cough. It's pissing me off. Air Force news. Trump picks Anderson for Air Force Stars and Stripes, released on 11th of March. Trump nominates Virginia GOP chair Rich Anderson as Assistant Secretary of the Air Force. Anderson is a retired colonel, steps down as party chair after leading it since 2020. His past includes aiding Governor Glenn Youngkin in 2021 win. I would say that the the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force being a retired colonel is probably better than a general officer being the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force. And the reason why is because I know some people will argue, hey, well, a colonel is kind of detached from what the people do uh, and what not what the mission is, but the real struggles of what the airmen and the NCOs and the enlisted and the young company grade officers are dealing with. They're detached from the mission, but I I think an '06 is definitely closer to the finger on their pulse than a general officer. So I kind of like that. That makes sense to me, and I dig it. So that's my 2 cents on that. Air Force cancels 2025 event. Air and Space Forces released on 11 March. The Air Force cancels its 2025 Life Cycle Industry Days in Dayton to meet Trump efficiency goals. The event, set for July, typically features briefings and tech exhibits. It may return in 2026 after a cost benefits review. Yeah, man, if we're being serious about cutting stuff, I don't think events like a life cycle industry event make sense when we are struggling to eh, not only struggling to meet our budget and to pay for things, but we're also looking at a 5 to 8% decrease in the DoD budget, in the defense budget. So, like things like this have got to get canceled. Like they've got to take a backseat. Now, that's not to say things like air shows or something like that shouldn't happen, because that is a recruiting event, that is a community engagement event. So those kind of things probably should remain, or at least be looked at a bit. But you know it's worth scrutinizing to see whether or not it's worth canceling. World War II runways revived. Stars and Stripes released on the 11th of March 2025. Air Force engineers clear Tinian's Northfield runways, aiming for completion by May. The project upgrades Indo-Pacific infrastructure for future conflicts. It balances historical preservation with wildlife concerns. Dude, that's pretty awesome that we're starting to revive some of these airfields and doing a lot more training in the Indo-Pacific. Um, you know, it's we're just making sure we're operationally ready. That's all we're doing. That's it. Don't worry about it. We're just making sure we're ready to go. F-22 air race revived. Air and Space Forces released on 11th of March. The Air Force restarts the Mitchell Trophy air race after 89 years, training F-22 crews for agile combat employment. 3 first fighter wing squadrons raced through the refueling in a 1.6-mile run in harsh conditions. The 94th Fighter Squadron won, boosting tactical readiness. If you guys aren't familiar with, well, so 2 things on this. One is, I'm just glad that we're still paying attention to F-22s, because for a while there, and I don't know, maybe that is still the fact, but the Air Force was looking to shit can the F-22. It's one of our 5th-gen fighters, and relatively new, I would say, in the grand scheme of things, of how old you compare it to the A-10, the F-16, the F-15, right? And we were looking at shit can the F-22. Now, I don't know if that's still happening or not, but it makes you wonder why we would get rid of a 5th-gen fighter when we don't have enough to go around. What do I know, though? I'm just a enlisted sweaty. So the other part of that I talked about is agile combat employment. If you're not familiar with agile combat employment, or ACE, it is kind of a hub and spoke idea, where you kind of have your hub and then you have your spokes to different bases, but your hub is kind of where all your logistics happens, right? But the part of that is some of that command and control that's coming out of the hub also needs to translate to the spokes. And so, to give you an example, if a strike package goes out that's, F-35s, F-22s, F-16s, A-10s, F-15s, right? And they're going to a strike to include tankers, bombers, all that kind of stuff. maybe you don't always land the F-35s at X base. You don't always land the F-22s at Y base. You have to mix it up. And sometimes you don't land any at, you know, X base. You just land them all at Z base or whatever, because you are trying to keep the enemy on their toes so that if incoming bombs or incoming attacks happen, like, you're minimizing your loss and you're keeping the enemy guessing on where they need to strike. That's what that is. Kadena Titans Night Rules, Stars and Stripes, 11 March 2025. The 18th Wing at Kadena Air Base adds approvals for night drills after Okinawa noise complaints. February exercises with explosions lacked prior notice to Kadena Town. The town awaits answers from the Okinawa Defense Bureau. Ooh, who messed that up? Was that the Air Force? Is this the Air Force News or is this Joint News? This is Air Force News. So I don't know if Air Force is the ones that messed that up, but when we, part of the SOFA agreements that we have in other countries that allow us to be there is we still have to abide by their rules, meaning there are quiet time hours. I know Germany had quiet time hours. I don't remember the UK having quiet time hours, but Germany was very strict on their quiet time hours. Okinawa is obviously now. It's the reality of it. I mean, even living out here in Las Vegas, there are people that move here that don't know that we have an Air Force base here. And then after, a red flag starts going on or a WISNT starts going on, and all of a sudden they can hear all these B-1s and F-15s and F-16s ripping it over their house. And they're like, dude, what the hell's going on? And then they complain about noise, but then we just ignore it on Nellis, like, whatever, nerds. Like, we don't care. We're here to train. We're trying to get operationally ready for what's coming. So we talked about, okay, next one is Ramadan exemption allowed, released, the Gazette released on the 11th of March. The Air Force Academy reverses its initial denial letting Muslim candidates skip PT during Ramadan. The decision, effective March 3rd, includes meal transport after advocacy from a religious freedom group. A cadet calls for better proactive planning. Yeah, I mean, I don't know all the NATS details all about this. I just know that this was very political and probably not handled well. I'm sure it could have been handled a lot better, obviously, which a cadet saying calls for better proactive planning. Yeah, they probably just didn't think about it, and it just slipped through the cracks. What is that? Hamlin's razor or whatever? Never account for malice when incompetence is due. It's probably incompetence, not malice. All right. Reaper drone incident probed. Stars and Stripes released on 11 of March. An MQ-9 Reaper rolls off Kadena's runway during taxiing with smoke near its engine. No injuries occurred, and the drone is towed for inspection. The Air Force and Okinawa Defense Bureau investigates cause. I wonder if that had anything to do with the nighttime change. These things do happen. We had one happen up at Creech a couple of months ago. I mean, it's just like any other incident, with an aircraft. Sometimes they malfunction. Sometimes it's, especially when you start talking about an MQ-9, sometimes there's a delay. Sometimes there's a loss of connection. Sometimes it's improper training of the pilot or the air crew. So there's a multitude thing, or it could be a bunch of things stacked on each up where things just go wrong. So yeah, it happened. Space Force News, commercial satellites eyed. Space News released on the 11th of March 2025. The Space Force considers commercial satellites to enhance geostationary orbit surveillance. Major General Stephen Purdy directs a review of options to replace the GSSAP satellites. I have no idea what that is. The goal is faster, cheaper solutions amid rising threats from China and Russia. Yeah, we sat on our freaking thumbs for so long, and we are behind. We've got to play catch up. And it's not going to be easy to play catch up when we're facing a 5 to 8% deficit or decrease in defense spending. And again, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing that we're getting cuts. I'm just saying that it's going to be tough, especially because people have these little pet projects that they are so concerned about, and they've got to get things done. And it's like, dude, reality. What is the value it's bringing? What's the return on investment? Like, let's look at that and see if it's worth it. Hawaii fuel spill cleanup, military.com, released on 11 March. The Space Force estimates 3 to 7 years to clean a 2023 fuel spill atop Halakala volcano. Bioventing systems aid remediation with periodic testing planned. Local Maori concerns grow over military expansion on the sacred site. Yeah, man, we got to be careful with that stuff. We can't just go spilling fuel. I don't know the details about this, like how this actually happened in 2023, but man, we, I don't know. We gotta make sure that we're on top of the ball and not just not giving a shit about where we're doing things for sure. All right, this are of interest, so it could be anything. F-35 partners stand firm. Dutch Defense News, 11 March. Dutch Defense Minister Ruben Brekelemans reaffirms F-35 committed despite U.S. aid concerns. He dismisses a quote-unquote kill switch fears as speculative, urging Europe to boost defense roles. The program relies on multinational support, including the U.S. Is this committed to buy it? I don't actually know what that means. I think that's what that means, is that the Dutch are supposed to be getting F-35s and they kind of balked at the cost of it, which several countries had done because it is an expensive fighter. Also, the upkeep and the maintenance and just to operate that thing is expensive, and a lot of countries, don't have that kind of defense spending. So I wonder if that's what that's about. DARPA hacks blood cells, military.com, 11 March. DARPA's red blood cell factory aims to tweak troops' blood for better performance and healing. The early stage project focuses on production or protection, not enhancement, using biological active components. Ethical and health impact questions under review. Red blood cell factory. Interesting. I think, and I've said it here before, I know that they're not talking about performance enhancing drugs, but at the same time, when you talk about HGH and stem cell therapy, I don't know why we're not giving these to people. Take the special operations side out of it, right? Because you could say I'm biased or I'm compromised there. What about pilots? Whether they're helicopter pilots or fighter pilots or bomber pilots, or mobility pilots. I'm not leaving you guys out, right? But when you just taking a fighter pilot and they're cranking their neck while they're cranking G's, trying to find somebody that's flying up here, or a helicopter pilot that's flying hours upon hours with this big old helmet on, with these big ass NVGs on, and they're also trying to do this and stuff like that. Like, it is challenging for them, and it crushes their neck. Those seats in the helicopter, in the fighters, and all the planes really were not made to spend 12 hours in doing a sortie. Like, so why wouldn't you give them some kind of HGH and some kind of stem cell therapy to protect your investment? We spend millions upon millions of dollars to train each and every single one of us. Now I'm bringing soft back into this, to train each and every one of us to do the nation's bidding. Why don't you protect your investment, and you could get more longevity out of us? I don't understand it, because of this old way of thinking that you can't do this because we're scared of stem cells, or we're scared of HGH, or we're scared of giving testosterone to people. God, freaking fired up about it. It's crazy. So anyway, that's today's news, 11 March. Thanks for joining us. Hope you like the new format. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, head over to onesready.com, buy yourself a piece of merch, check out our partners. If you go over to onesready.com, head over to the right-hand side, click prep, click partner discounts, scroll down, you'll see 18 Alpha Fitness, Modern Athlete Strength Systems, Attack Elite, Hoist, Barbell Apparel, all of them. You'll see all of them. And so don't forget to check them out. All right, we're out here. Later.